No.
Or just came to return your horse.
Have you changed it? Or are you still the centre of the universe?
How could I not changed?
I've changed. I'm a Chartist now, Pip. I joined the Chartist movement. Women are very welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Well. So I'd be a little busy to be put in your kitchen with your beer and your tobacco.
I won't even have a kitchen. It's my sister's home. You're very welcome, Lizzie.
Right. We've got a few people that have signed up, so we'll give it a few minutes, give people time to log on and check in.
He went into the schoolhouse. He was crying with horse. He was in church. I got back and the horse was gone. Almost hasn't been stolen. Now the full set of shoes on and delivered it. Flames or bad flames? Possible to predict it.
There will be regulations and divisions. You'll start with a regular apprentice. There will be one for you and for
All right, Lorien, we'll give it a few more minutes, okay?
Anybody have any good plans for the weekend or anything?
I'm hoping to just do nothing for a change.
That sounds lovely. I think our weather might comply, right? And create a nice little rainy backdrop for doing nothing.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but sometimes if the weather is good, I feel pressured.
I know, because you just don't know when that window is going to be. Like, it could rain here for 40 days and 40 nights.
Exactly, especially this time of year.
Yeah, I get it.
Totally.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started, at least with the introduction of our guest this evening. Thank you, Lorien, so much for joining us and finding time in your busy schedule. We love the fact that this month is Mental Awareness Month, and we realize how incredibly important it is to take time for uh, mental health, physical health, mind, body, and soul, as your mantra states.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to give our community members an opportunity to really like have some dedicated time to invest in learning more about how to get into that space and how to make that a part of your lifestyle. So thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to start off by reading a bio, and
Okay.
then we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, awesome.
Everyone, please uh, welcome Lorien Rochelle to our program this evening. She's the founder and CEO of Rebel Soul. She's a board certified holistic lifestyle and meditation coach. She's also certified in yoga. She's a public speaker, writer, and retreat leader. And she has devoted her lifestyle to empowering ambitious souls to finally prioritize themselves and transform their lives through radical self-care. Her unique approach to health and wellness is soulful, simple, and accessible. And she believes that wellness and optimal living is your divine right, mind, body, and soul. So everyone, let's please welcome Lorien to our program this evening.
Thank you. That's such a great intro. I appreciate that. Would you mind empowering me to share my screen?
Oh, absolutely. Hold on one second. Are you getting the
Yeah, host disabled participant screen sharing.
yeah,
If you can't do it, it's okay. I can talk through it. It's not a big deal.
no, hold on one second. Let me just have the admin do it.
Okay.
All right. She's going to get that. So you can go ahead and kind of start, and she's going to get that rolling for you.
Okay, awesome. So one of the things that I love talking about is radical self-care. And, honestly, I got started with this concept, I was telling Natasha, of radical self-care really at the top of the pandemic, or like kind of like mid, when maybe not so much in Atlanta, but around the world for the most part. So many of the things that we typically attributed to self-care were no longer available to us. And so it led me down this path of understanding and writing a couple articles and doing some lectures and things like that around like what radical self-care is. And one of the most powerful quotes that I had seen was by Audre Lorde. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it's self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. And I was particularly moved by that at that time specifically as well, because in addition to going through the pandemic, we also had quite a bit of civil unrest and things like that going on at the time. And to be fair, even though some of that has passed us, I don't know that we always take into account, in addition to the stress of our everyday lives, just the multiple roles we play and work stress and family and, being pulled in multiple directions, the stress of even just the things that we see on the news. So a lot of that stuff just sort of almost seeps into our skin without us noticing. And so the concept of radical self-care was born. And so somehow my slides jumped around. Pardon me 1 second.
You should have screen sharing now.
Do I have it now? Okay, let me figure out what's going on here. I might have to do a little bit of reset on my own. Let me get my screen back. Sorry, navigating this little screen myself. And it closed on me. And so I started considering if I had to put something more concrete, an actual title, right? Or a description around radical self-care, what would that look like, right? How would I describe that to someone? You know, when you start talking about it as a business, you know, the number one question people ask is, you know, how do you scale a concept like self-care? And so I busied myself actually with doing just that. Give me 2 seconds. I've got this almost set. Got it. Okay. I don't know. Something weird is happening between me and it and Zoom. It might be all the motion detection that I've got going on. Let me just close this. And I'll try it a different way. There we go. It might be a little bit weird at first while I get this set up. Can you guys see my screen? Yes, okay. I don't know, something weird is happening with the loading. I apologize. There we go. So can you see that okay, still? Okay, so I wanted to give it a title, a definition, right? Sometimes it's hard when you start talking about things like self-care, it feels very soft. So I characterized or defined it as the revolutionary act of prioritizing yourself so that all that you give and you do and how you serve and how you show up, you do so from your overflow and not your reserves. Radical self-care helps us effectively manage stress, negative emotions, overwhelm, you know, things like that. But it shouldn't be like another thing on your to-do list, because the one thing that we learned, right, in the pandemic is that a service or a travel or a thing that exists outside of us oftentimes could go away or be hard to obtain. And our lives often demand and require us to show up as so many things. Even in the course of a day, when you think about between your work and your family, just those two things, you could show up at work in multiple roles as a boss, a coworker, a peer, whatever, a teacher, a student. At home, you could show up as a wife or a sister or a cousin or whatever. And so through all of those things, it is all energy output, right? And I always like to use the example of like our cell phones. And we're really good about monitoring our cell phone's battery, right? But when have you ever seen your battery go beyond 100? Right? So the maximum battery is 100%. And then sometimes you might even go through and start doing things so that you're like, okay, how can I put things in place so that I preserve my battery, right? My battery life, so that it doesn't drain as much, because maybe you know you're going to be gone all day, right? And you want to make sure that you have enough battery. We do those things with our cell phones, but we don't always do them for ourselves. And so there are things that creep in and suck on, if you will, our energy a bit, sometimes without us even being aware. And so that is one of them. It's not necessarily a bad thing, right? That we have these roles. Oftentimes it's a good thing. You might also have a job and a side hustle, whatever. But at the end of the day, because we have those roles, and we're being asked to do that, radical self-care is the way that we reclaim ourselves. So again, we show up in those spaces refreshed, recharged, powered up, versus depleted and overwhelmed. Let me just do this. Hopefully this works and takes me one slide ahead. Perfect. Okay. So why do I need radical self-care? Like, fine, I do the things, I have my outlets, I have my hobbies, great. What is important about it though? So when we think about the impacts of prolonged stress, right? Prolonged stress response, which essentially means that we stay almost like in a survival mode. We're almost in fight or flight on a regular basis. Oftentimes we don't even know that, particularly women. And if we sit a lot at work in our beautiful work chairs and we're on conference calls and all of those things, oftentimes we don't even realize even the way we position our bodies creates a stress response, right? When you think about our ancestors, oftentimes, as uncomfortable as it looks, they would do like those wide leg squats or things like that. When you look at the dance styles, a lot of the reason why so much of that was designed to release tension and stress in the hips and the low back is because, particularly for women, that's where we hold our stress. It's where we hold our grief. It's where we hold our trauma. And so imagine, as part of this daily life, this successful life we have now, we spend most of it seated. It's kind of odd, right? And so when we don't make radical self-care part of our daily lives, right? And we think, oh, I just don't have the time, then we're also dealing with the impacts of that: anxiety, depression, digestive issues, headaches, sleep issues, weight gain, memory challenges, poor concentration, impaired immunity, reduced or loss of sex drive, and overreaction. You know, I swear, I think that's the bulk of road rage, right? Is people are so stressed out, and we don't often have ways that are approved for us to let it go. And so by the time that idiot in that car, the person I don't know, don't love, don't have any relation to, has the audacity to cut me off, well, now you're going to catch it, right? Because somebody's going to catch it. You look like a good candidate to catch it, because also you're over there in that car, I'm over here in this car, I can say whatever I want and you can't hear me. And as long as I don't flip you a bird, you probably don't even know how I genuinely feel. And now I have expressed myself. But is that the healthiest way, right? Because now we've just created more stress for ourselves. So this is why radical self-care is important, because it doesn't also require anything additional. So sometimes I talk about what it doesn't look like. And back in the pandemic, that was very easy to do, right? Because it didn't look like going out very often, or taking trips, or going on retreats, or getting your nails done, or and if you did do those things, it was like you were packing for the apocalypse. It was like, okay, I have my gloves, my mask, my wipes, my this, my that. I gotta like suit up, like almost like a hazmat situation, right? And so, you know, we're back to moving around a little bit easier now, right? A little bit more like we used to. But the thing that I welcome for all of us, again, is when you have a very busy schedule, a very busy life, you start to look at your calendar, you know, and everybody talks about now, this is the rage. Everybody talks about schedule your you time. Okay, so let me sit down and let me look at this book that has all this stuff already in it. And let me figure out where I'm going to build in my time to relieve my stress, when looking at this book could also be a point of stress in and of itself. And so that's what got me thinking. And then additionally, as we head sort of towards a recession, right? Maybe what it used to look like at the job we had pre-pandemic doesn't look like what we can afford with the job we have now. Lifestyle changes and shifts and decisions that we made or whatever can certainly have impacts on those things. And so, but Audre Lorde wasn't talking about spa days, right? When we tap into our ancestors, that's not what they were trying to tell us. They were trying to help us understand, how do we get back to our essence, right? And our truest sovereignty, which is, for me, sometimes it looks like savage prioritization. And I mean savage. That means that when you look at that list of 15 things, you start looking at, with a very honest, precise intentionality, saying, what on this list do I want to do I have to do, aligns with my goals and my plans for my future self? That is a very different lens than, right? Like, if I don't do this, who's going to be mad at me? Who am I going to disappoint or let down? Because this requires now, and we'll get to that in a second, this lends itself then to using the word no. And not with a lot of explanation, but more as a complete sentence. No, I cannot. No, that doesn't fit in my schedule. No, I'm unable to do that this time. Right? Without any of the additional sort of feeling of obligation or guilt or whatever sometimes that comes with, if we don't keep showing up, what's going to happen? Well, then that starts to look a lot like boundaries. And, this gets a little bit deeper because so many of us, whether we want to admit it or not, don't often operate with boundaries. We think we do, but we do it with people that aren't the highest on our list probably. So it's kind of easy. It's kind of easy to tell that person no, because they didn't come to your party anyway. But, right? But when you look at the list, are there people who you look at and say, you haven't shown up in these ways for me, and that's okay. I'm not judging you. I'm actually grateful because now it lets me off the hook. And or it allows me to look at my list and say, are we going in the same direction? When I'm with you, are you fanning my flames? When I'm with you, do I feel empowered and recharged, or do I feel drained? And so then that leads us into auditing our circle, our time, and our energy. Because again, when we look at our dear phone with only 100% battery, right? Then we have to, I'm sure you've been in that situation where you get down to the red and then you go find that button. So you go on the low energy usage so that you can try to savor. You'd be like, oh my God, I'll be home in an hour. I just need to hold on to this last little bit because I don't have my extra charger with me and I'm not in my own car and I won't be able to, right? But when you think about it, we live our lives like that. On that last little red, hitting the yellow, like, oh, almost on fumes, right? So when we sit down to audit our circle, our time, and our energy, it is an exercise of depth. It is some hard conversations with self because we start looking at the goals we've set for ourselves, the life we say we want, and how our moment to moment, day to day, week to week actions align with that. Because that's how we get to goals. That's how we achieve those outcomes. It's not like big leaps. It's little steps that we take every day. So every time we sacrifice 5 hours to Netflix and chill and binge, that's 5 hours potentially that we intended should have gone someplace else. But because we were tired and so at the job got on your nerves and oh my God, I just can't imagine thinking another deep thought for the rest of this day, I'm gonna let myself off the hook. Well, okay, maybe that day you need that. But if you also don't have people in that circle or other guardrails and things set up for yourself, you sort of almost start to run that cycle like a run-on sentence with no punctuation. So that audit is healthy. I do it regularly because I like to look at my goals and I understand how my habits and the people that I'm around and my activities either add, like take me steps forward, or subtract, take me steps back or sideways. Now, a girls' night out or in, come on. Whether it's like this virtual or whether we stepping out or whether we're doing wine circle or whatever, that's still such a beautiful thing, right? Because we were meant to be together. Conceptually, this idea of us going long periods of time without human touch is not healthy. One hug actually reduces stress almost at the same rate as a Xanax. So imagine when we went months without human touch, right? Our systems were supercharged up. I recently learned, and I won't get too sciencey here, but when you start thinking about your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system, they work in concert, right? And so they're designed actually, some to work autonomically. In other words, you hear the knock at the door and you're like, oh, I didn't invite nobody, who's that, right? That's fight or flight, because who's at the door? And I didn't invite nobody, I wasn't expecting anybody. Or like you hear that weird crack in the house and you know you home by yourself or whatever. That's fight or flight. The challenge is that living in a stress state, even at a minor baseline, is the equivalent of our ancestors being chased by lions on a daily basis. Same thing. I used to actually present this with a graphic with a little girl and an ice cream cone being chased by lions, because that's literally almost how we live our lives on a daily basis. So having the opportunity to touch and hug and make eye contact and all of that allows for our parasympathetic to kick in. We can experience stress on that level for such duration that it can actually cause things like paralysis, heart problems, lung issues, breathing issues, things like that. So we really want to be extremely mindful that even in this virtual world, that we make the time, absolutely, when we can, to connect with the people that we love and actually touch them and make eye contact and be in person with them. That is, we were intended and created to live in tribes. So all this, like, you off by yourself doing your own thing, not how it's supposed to be, and extremely stressful on the system. And then anything that really makes you feel like the most powerful version of you. So like, for me, sometimes it's putting on my favorite song and dancing around like a lunatic in my kitchen, because that just makes me feel amazing. Singing at the top of my lungs off key makes me feel incredible. Whipping, like my karaoke mic, doing my thing makes me feel great. Having a glass of wine, like whatever that is, that allows you to take a step back and recenter with you, reclaim you, what you want, what you need. And without guilt or feeling like you're letting anybody down, identify what those needs are and prioritize them right there in that moment. And so for Rebel Soul, we focus on primarily movement, meditation, music, and breath work, because those are the things that, quite frankly, are at our fingertips all the time. You don't actually really have to buy anything unless you want to. You don't really have to schedule it unless you really need to, because I don't mean like an hour long of movement. It could simply be getting up and walking around the block. It could be dancing with your broom and singing, turning on your favorite music. All of those things scientifically actually help us to manage our stress. So I'll stop here and ask any questions before I just keep sort of like marching on and doing my thing.
I have a question. So we've identified, areas where people, particularly women, often sacrifice that whole self-care aspect. So what are some of the things that you can do or say to those, your loved ones or closest to you? Because sometimes we have a hard time communicating no.
Yes.
What are how are some of the ways that we can communicate, like you said, no, that's not for me, I don't have the capacity, all of those things, without feeling like we are abandoning those that we love and those that count on us so much for support?
I love that question. So one of the things that I have come to understand is oftentimes the people who love us and depend on us don't actually understand that we get tired. Part of it is that we do such an amazing job. Let me tell you, women especially Black women, we are the cheat code. We maximize, amplify, alchemize everything we touch. And our gift is that we make it look easy. So one of the first things I think that we have to do is we do have to admit, hey, I'm not a superwoman. I'm tired, right? I love you. My no is not a reflection of me not loving you. And here's where we get a little bit deep with that, because so much of what we do and the way we navigate the world is we express our love and our appreciation through our yes. Yes, yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll show up. Yes, yes, yes. So no feels rough for us and them, right? And so when we're able to convey, I love you, but here's how I'm feeling. And I'm happy to do this for you, but I need to do this for me first. And the beautiful thing is that by doing that, not only do we, through our voice, give ourselves the permission, we've now created a very healthy boundary so that they can begin to learn to ask first, right? We live our lives so often allowing people to just expect so much without asking. Don't assume that just because my title is X, you have a right to X at any point, at any and every point. Sometimes I need time for me. So sometimes just showing up for yourself initially and blocking that time and saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to set up Saturday afternoons as a date afternoon for me. And you know how you benefit, my love, because when I do that for me, then I can do this for you. Is that helpful? Sharice, I saw your hand was up too.
I kind of was thinking kind of the same thing that Natasha was kind of saying, because I think, especially as women, I mean, that's the experience that I have. As a woman, we like when we can be the hero or the heroine for everybody. And everybody expects that. But then we have this negative self-talk to each other, for ourselves, when we can't do those things or we run out of fumes. We have those negative self-talks and things. And so what are some things that we could do, say to ourselves, to, like, you know, because that's the worst enemy, I feel like. It's not external, it's internal.
It is. Thank you for that. And you're 100% right. Okay, so we are going to get a little deep. One of the things I think that's really important is for us to understand that we are enough, butt ass naked in the middle of the street, doing nothing for nobody, but existing and breathing. You are already enough. So the worth that we place on being all the things to everybody is absolutely unnecessary and actually is out of alignment with what God, universe wants for us, right? We are compromising our full worth because we're trading it for acceptance and appreciation and love and all of those things, when in reality, you are enough and sufficient in your creation as you stand. No trading required. So that is it. I am enough because I am. Because I am. I am in his image. And so therefore I am all and enough, right? So the reality is that for so many of us, because of the way we've been raised, this is not easy, right? This is almost like we have to, you know, this gets thrown around a lot, but like breaking generational curses to a certain degree, because, you know, when we look at the sacrifices that our mothers or our grandmothers or whatever, that is the value that was placed on them. Mm-hmm. But that is not our value. And so we don't do ourselves a service by breaking ourselves down into little pieces, wearing ourselves into the ground, trying to be something for other people so that we can feel heroic. We are heroic because we get up every day. Blessed and highly favored, thank you so much. I woke up and I put my feet on the ground and I stood up and I stretched, boom, there we go. And so, you know, when I look at even the women in my family, right? That was a thing I had to grow out of. It was hard. So I'm not saying it from a perspective of like, oh, I was born this way. It's through holding sessions like this and talking to women all around the world, quite frankly, right? And having these in-depth conversations is actually one of my favorite things to do, because we have to be emancipated from that thinking. Because the reality is that we actually are the heartbeat of so many of our families. So we're almost working in counter by wearing ourselves down, right? Because they need us strong.
Mhm.
They need us here and strong and able. And the reason I can tell you the story about the breakdown of the sympathetic nervous system is because my mom has that. And it left her partially disabled. And I used to tell her all the time, you just run around all over the place. I don't know for who, for what? What are you doing? When are you resting? When are you properly eating? When are you properly caring for yourself? I was like, I don't know where the gold medal is, but. And literally in her living room one day watching the news, I don't know what the stressful thing was or whatever that she saw. But it took her down. You know, so I'm speaking really also from, you know, firsthand knowledge, and why this is so important to me, because we are the cornerstone. Like without us, our communities, our entire lineages fail. So we have to show up like that. Like it's dependent upon us.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the reasons why, as Black women, we have such a struggle with this, is because I think that our culture in particular, it's part of the essence of, like, from a foundational standpoint, it's not only what's expected of us, but kind of what's bred into us as women.
Yes.
And so you don't even identify it as an issue. You just feel like it's just, this is what day to day, this is what it is.
Yes. You don't until.
Mhm.
And then we feel like that's how we show our love, is running ourselves basically into the ground. You
Right.
know, is the yes is the way we show our love, and it's not.
It's not. It can't be, because we cannot give what we don't have.
Mhm.
And so that's like literally pulling from an account that has no money left. And so are we giving love at that point? Right? We have to really have these tough questions and tough conversations with ourselves, because then we have to ask, what does love really look like? Because if love looks like me in a hospital bed because I put you before me, when really I needed to put me first so that I could be who you needed me to be to show up for you. That was why and I love going back, you know, one of the things that I do a lot is I love to go back to the ancients, to the ancestors, right? And so they actually had very smart ways of doing things. Now, of course, we don't live in those kinds of times, but that concept of requiring a village is based in that idea. Conceptually, the village was because you could be on watch while I'm sleeping. You watch my family while I'm sleeping, and then I do the same thing for you. Right? They did not live the way we live. And their mindset was completely different. You know, within within tribes, now granted, we're not trying to share wives and husbands and all that kind of stuff, but within those family units, right, you still had many generations that were living and residing together for that reason, so that the weight didn't all fall on one, right? And then responsibility shifted over time. So even when you look at some other cultures, mostly not ours, unfortunately, but many of them, as the women get older, the rest of the family comes in and begins to support. So they do less and less because they've trained other women in their family to do the things that they used to do. Unfortunately, in our culture, for a variety of different reasons, we don't have that, and we still be running into the ground in our 70s, still trying to be all things to everybody, and noticing all those things I talked about earlier, these little illnesses, these little minor annoyances, right? Oh, I don't have time to go to the doctor for that. Oh, that ain't nothing. Oh, I don't have time to pay attention to that. Not realizing these things are not unique. Oftentimes, they are little whispers all joining forces to try to tell you something in a gentle way before the whole thing comes crashing down. Right? But we're also unfortunately taught, again, when we get in that mind space, if I don't put me first, if I look at my schedule and how many doctor's appointments I don't attend, or how many things I don't do for me, but that time is going to other people in other places, that is sacrifice. Even Jesus said, I'm going to take a moment, going to take a break. He took a break, God took a break. But Black women are like, I don't need a break. I got it. Right? And so I think when we can have those conversations like this and be open and honest and say how we genuinely feel, and there's no judgment, right? Of course, like, we've all done it, been there, was raised that way, all of those things. But it's up to us to have these conversations so we can start to think about how we change this narrative. How do we change this path forward, especially for the women who are coming after us? How do we begin to set a different model? How do we begin to take hold of our lives, even in the tiniest of ways? And so that's why this concept of radical self-care became so important to me, because I'm like, you can't take women who are already doing everything for everybody and then tell them, oh, by the way, schedule these 5 1-hour-long things for yourself. That's too hard. So the things that I focus on are simple and easy, and sometimes take 5 minutes or less, but change your life in ways that you almost can't even imagine. Any other questions or thoughts? This is such a good conversation, and I am just mindful that we have 15 minutes. Maya, am I saying your name right?
Yes, I'm sorry. I just wanted to see if you can go back to the previous screen. I actually wanted to jot some of those things down that you had up.
I'm actually happy to share out this
Okay.
presentation so you guys don't have to worry about taking notes or
Okay.
anything. And I don't know if we were recording. Maybe we should have.
We're recording. It'll be uploaded to YouTube, but also, Lorien, if you want to send me the PowerPoint later, I'll make sure that we send it out to everyone.
Okay, awesome. Because I'm also going to package with it a link. Last year, I launched a product, but along with it, I launched a series of short meditations. So if you guys are into it, I'll package those along with the presentation so you guys can have them. One thing I like to focus on with meditation, and these won't be my last, they're just my first. I like them to be very specific. So they're event specific, like stress or self-love, or they're very topic specific so that the words and the music that is accompanying them are all sort of goal oriented and topic focused. So any other questions or thoughts? So the one we're going to do, the activity we're going to do today is specifically around breath work. And the reason I picked this one is because it's actually the easiest, because you can do it while you're doing other things. I mean, we're masters at that, right? We are, and not that I want you to, but I'm saying that if I want you to take baby steps, I want to make it easy. So why not give you something that you can do while you're doing something else? You're probably doing 3 other things and you can still do this, right? And so when we talk about breath work, we're talking about a conscious and controlled breathing pattern, right? It's typically done for relaxation, meditation, or therapeutic purposes. And it's based in the concept of pranayama. So pranayama is a Sanskrit word, prana meaning life energy, yama meaning control. So when you think about conceptually the idea of practicing regulating or control of your life energy, right? When you think about how deep that is, and that's something you can do in 2 to 4 minutes, right? That's pretty impactful. It is a main component of yoga. And it is the thing that so, yoga has taken on a lot of different styles and connotations and all of that. But ultimately what yoga means is the connection between movement and breath. So from my perspective, that means it could be almost anything. When I yoke my breath and my movement, that can mean my breath and my walking, my breath and my dishwashing, my breath and my laundry doing, my breath and my walking dogs. Like, to me, all of these things, so it's yoga on the mat versus yoga off, right? So these are my sort of ways I like to look at things. You might remember I am the creator of a company called Rebel Soul. So I like to rebel. You give me a rule, I'm like, okay, that's cool for everybody else, but I don't know. How do we break that? How do we make this actually a thing that we can do, right? Because most of the time, to be honest, even when I started my yoga journey, I was one of 2 brown girls on that journey. And I was like, this is cool and all, right? But how do I take some of these same things and bring them back into the places that make sense for us, put it in a language and a style that works for the way we live and the way we think? So what are the benefits? Deep breathing brings deep thinking. Shallow breathing brings shallow thinking. So I'll give you a point of reference. So I'm sure you've always heard the story of the tortoise and the hare, right? Do you know how long bunnies live? Not very long. Bunnies live maybe like 7, 8 years. They're fast. They're like, they breathe fast. We always know what everybody talks about. Oh, such like a bunny. Fast, 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 fast. Everything fast. Tortoises, slow. You ever seen them? They almost can't be bothered. You want to talk about the definition of unbothered is a turtle. Literally. You know what the major difference is between the two? How they breathe. Craziest thing. Turtles breathe really slow. If you ever have an opportunity to watch, you're probably not like me. I am obsessed with turtles. So I have a lot of them in my Instagram feed. I'm one of those people. I like the one when they dress them up with the little hat and everything. But if you ever watch the way they breathe, you can see how slow their little bellies move. They do everything exceptionally slow. They live to like 125. Unbothered. You ever seen one crossing the street? Unbothered. They're like, I don't know. Worst case, I'm gonna go in this show. So I don't know. Y'all figure it out there. I'm not involved. I'm not getting involved, right? They're amazing. So I like to think about breath work or breathing like adopting the life of a turtle. I like to give visuals and stories. So now that when you think about it, you'll be like, I'm breathing like a turtle, gonna live to 125, right? Unbothered. And so, but it's backed by scientific research too, right? So it's not just Lorien talking crazy. It helps really deal with symptoms of anxiety, stress tolerance, sleep quality, focus, lung and immune function. I mean, improve focus. And when I say immune, I mean your lung and the full immune system within your body, because how do you think your cells get around? Oxygen. How do you think oxygen gets in your body and into your cells? Breath. So when we're sitting there all crunched over at our computers, right, with our shoulders all up and everything like that, and you're crunched over and you're compressing your chest, guess what's not expanding? Your lungs. And then because we're so worried about that little extra little bit of pooch we put on, we're not expanding our bellies to breathe. So we're holding our bellies in super, super tight all the time, and we're not breathing. You know, it's the life of a woman, right? So not only are we doing everything, but we're trying to be thin and snatched and fine and dressed and this and that and smart. And it's a lot, right? And we're not breathing. Okay, so how does it work? There's different types of breathing exercises. Because I'm going to give you this and we have 7 minutes, I'll jump right to the chase. So diaphragmatic belly breathing, you're going to have to let the belly go. Stop sucking it in. Just let it hang. I know, but ain't nobody looking. It's just us. And I can only see you from the shoulders up. So I can't tell. Pursed lip breathing is another style. Slow paced breathing is another style. It's like 4-6 breaths. So like inhale on 4. So 2, 3, 4, out 6. And I usually do it like 1, 2, 3, 4, inhaling, counting, and then I count backwards, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on the out, right? So these are the different styles. The others don't require any counting. It's just more so the way you're controlling the breath. So there's a difference between like when you inhale through your nose and then you almost like put your lips like you're gonna whistle. It really controls how much air can come out. It's not like what we're doing is we're oxygenating our brain, our spine, our nervous system, which functions off the spine. You almost begin to feel almost like an immediate calm come over you. But the one we're going to do today is box breathing. This one is my favorite. Navy SEALs use it. Olympic athletes, professional athletes, medical professional. When I tell you everybody uses box breathing, that's my dog. He's not box breathing. He's got allergies. It is hands down the most effective, and you probably only need 2 to 3 rounds tops, because you're going to inhale 4, this is through the nose, hold at the top, 4, 3, 2, 1, out 4, hold 4. So it's easy to remember because it's like a box, right? Now, I couldn't find a box to represent it, but I wanted to give you an image to help you focus. And so before we begin, I want us to do a quick reset, because I'm going to show you how quickly this is. We have 4 minutes left. I want you to close your eyes or not. Ask yourself, like, what do I need in this moment? Not what do I need to do for other people, not who's expecting what from me, not what's next on my to-do list. What do I need in this moment? It's a great prompt at any time of day to bring you present to yourself, to check in and connect with what you need most, and then begin to visualize your most positive outcome. Because the mind is so powerful. And now, when you connect that with your breath, that is the amplifier. So now we have this cute little image that goes in and out, because I wanted you to see what full breathing looks like, right? And I'm going to play a little music for you for a few minutes. And I want you to practice the box breathing. Don't get so caught up that you can't appreciate it. We're only going to do it for a minute because I want you to see how fast it can work. Any questions about the 4, 4, 4, 4? Okay, I'm going to start the music and we're going to start breathing. Let me know if you can hear it when it starts. How far did you get? How many goes were you able to squeeze in? 3, 4? How do you feel?
It's very relaxing.
A little sleepy?
Yeah.
Relax.
You can kind of feel your shoulders kind of like relax a little bit.
Yeah. And so that's the goal. That's how quickly, right, you can reset your nervous system. And that's the goal. And I would offer in those moments then too, when you have decisions to make, you're being asked to do something, before you commit, take a breath. Bring it back to yourself for a second. Can I do that without it costing me? What is the cost of my yes? Because they're not free. They're not free. Every single one of them, if you think about them from the perspective of currency, right? We're paying time, attention, whatever. And so it's up to us to begin to place the highest value possible, like gold, on our time and our energy, right? Our focus, our being, our well-being, our wellness, our mental state. So again, that we can begin to give from that place of overflow. That way it's joyous giving, right? It's joyous giving. Because otherwise, then we're like, oh man, they're asking me to do this again. We might not say it to them, but deep down inside, that little bit of resentment starts to creep in and be like, oh, here she come again, asking me for something. You right? Oh boy, better be glad I love you, right? Those kinds of things. But the reality is that that's a signal. That's a signal. And that's a signal that it's too late.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such a great, insightful program, I think a lot of us, it really hit home to a lot of the things that go on in our lives as women, whether we identified it prior to this or if there was something that you said that really made us say, you know what, I can relate to that. So thank you so much for just being engaging enough with us to create a conversation about some of these things that, for whatever reason, are not discussed in our community. So we
Thank
appreciate
you.
you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm sorry, I'm listening to you. I miss so much in the chat. I'm a chat watcher normally. I feel so bad that I wasn't able to do both of those things. But
Yeah.
thank you for having me. And again, I will share this presentation and the meditations. And one thing I would absolutely love is if you all could, oh yes, please send me one.
It looks so good. It looks really good.
And I need to actually come to some of the events. I need to do
You
a
don't
better
like it?
of coming to the events, participating.
You
But
do?
I
You
would
have to
love
get
to
used to
hear
it.
from you
It
all.
looks better than the week before
And
because it's more
if you're
defined.
able
You can
to-
see it through it.
Uh-oh, there's someone who needs to mute. Hold on.
Aw, I hear a little person. And so I would love to hear from you all. If you're able to incorporate some of these things, how it went. Or if you ran into another thing or whatever, right? Just please keep me posted because I don't want this to be the last time that we have this conversation, and I want to be support to you however I can be.
Yes, definitely. And it seems like from the response that this is something that, our community members are in need of additional topics. And because I'm sure that this is something that has so many different avenues to it that we could talk about all day. So we'll definitely look at doing another one of these and possibly doing a series going forward and some more exercises. Definitely techniques. The techniques are so helpful,
Yes.
in your day-to-day life. So yes,
Yes.
we appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. And I can't wait to talk more. This was such an amazing conversation. So I appreciate you. And please stay
Yes.
in touch. And hopefully I get to see you all soon.
Yes. Thank you. And thank everyone for coming out tonight. And then we will see you guys soon. Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye.